You're listening to the Email Expert Podcast, where you get real examples, real strategies, and expert advice with your host, Daniel Dayette.
Welcome to the Email Expert Podcast. On today's show, we've got Kevin Polley, founder of the marketing firm Mutual Advantage in the UK, and also the owner of the hosting shop, a WordPress web host. ARP Reach, for those of you who don't know, is a piece of software you can install on your own web host for sending emails, setting up autoresponders, etc. It can be installed on a smaller web host or on the Amazon cloud or even on a custom server. It's a piece of software that allows you to manage your own reputation, your own marketing, without the heavy hand of ESPs like Aweber and Fusionsoft. You kind of get to make your own rules. Now, Kevin, before we dig into the meat of today's chat, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as kind of the tech geek and owner of these different tech-related companies?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Dan, for having me, and hello, everyone. I started off in the world of online marketing back in 1999. I was a serial entrepreneur, and I've always had my eye on the future, looking for the next big things. And round about 1999, the web was becoming the thing to get involved in. Set up my first website, and within a matter of days, the hosting company that I'd chosen at that time had issues, and my site went offline, and that was my first introduction into the frailties of the web. From there, I realized that if I wanted to have a nice, successful business online, I needed to have stable hosting. I got my own servers, set those up. Then I realised I needed somewhere to put those servers. It wasn't quite possible to run a business from your home. So then the company that I had, we had to go into co-location. And co-location is where you put your servers into a data centre. That led into the world of data transit. And we became an ISP. That was around about 2005. During that time, around about 2000, I realized that email marketing was the key, essentially, to being able to run a business online. When people come to a website, they can do one or two, three things, essentially. They can buy, leave, or bookmark the site, and out of those, only one was really good for us as business owners, and that's buy. And the ability to be able to constantly contact people that had visited your site using email just made logical sense. And around that time, there was a software called ARP, or Auto Response Plus, and I started using that. And the reason I started using that as opposed to a monthly service provider was, being a smart business owner, I realised that I didn't want to be paying monthly for having a service, and that cost would increase as my list grew. And back then, Auto Response Plus was pretty much the only software that was commercially available that allowed me to do that. And essentially, since then, with all of the different websites that I've set up for myself and my clients, we've always gone down the road of owning your own software to give you that independence and the freedom. And long story short, Dan, a couple of years ago, the opportunity came up for me to actually buy ARP Reach, which was the follow-on version of software from Auto Response Plus. That was originally developed by Neil Morgan. Auto Response Plus became ARP3, became ARP Reach, and I ended up buying ARP Reach, and that's where I am at the moment. So, yeah, long story short, that's a bit about Kevin Polley and me with internet marketing.
Nice. So I know you acquired ARP, and you had a huge passion for kind of monetizing leads, turning those business contacts into dollars. What are your favorite things about ARP Reach, and what do you feel its advantages are compared to other email solutions out there?
Well, the biggest advantage is that you own the platform, and as you said in the intro, you have absolute control over what you do. ARP Reach, whichever you want to call it, has got so many advantages for the modern marketer, it's hard to know where to begin. But if we start with the fact that you own the list that you are having on your own software, safety and security is right at the top of the list. If, for example, you do have an issue with deliverability, you get spam complaints, if you're using a monthly autoresponder service, Aweber can shut you down in an instant. And what that means is that you're without that email marketing service, you're losing income, and to get back up and running, you have to export the list if you can get it into a new service provider, and then recreate all of the forms that you've got on all of those sites before you can start getting leads in and monetizing them. Having ARP Reach at your disposal, you can keep the forms up if you have an issue, and within 5 or 10 minutes you can quite easily hook ARP into any one of the multitude of ESPs that are available. The next big thing, the thing that really made me want to buy ARP Reach, was the segmentation. It has an absolutely awesome segmenting capability. It allows you to take your whole contact list and segment it down into the interests of the person, where they are, what broadcasts they've opened, what they haven't opened, so that you can take a list of 10, 20, 30,000 and bring it down to the 100 or 200 people that are most likely going to want to buy your product. So out of all of the, benefits of using ARP, those are probably the two biggest ones that I tend to focus on, and the two that most marketers seem to like.
That makes sense. I know you've been playing with online marketing for a really long time. How long have you been kind of managing email marketing?
We've got to be looking at the best part of 6 or 7 years for clients at the moment, and really, 100% focus for the last 2 years since we took on ARP Reach. We've had the advantage that because we also have the hostingshop.co.uk, we've been able to take the clients that we were looking after before that and give them a really stable solution where we control for them the ability to have the right kind of server without any of the issues that some cheap services have. While ARP can be installed on cheap £5 a month hosting, the problem there is it's a shared hosting environment, and that leads to deliverability issues, Dan.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. Obviously, there's all kinds of reputation issues there. I don't know if we should dive into some of the issues that can happen as a result of that, or maybe we should start here.
We can in a while, yeah. Sort of.
Let's talk
for a second. Don't want to give too many secrets away.
No. I fully get there's a bit of a secret sauce. The beautiful thing about email marketing is, in a funny way, we really can't share all the deep, juicy secrets, even in a 1 hour call anyway. It's not possible.
That's absolutely true, Dan.
It's funny, Kevin. I don't know about you, but ever since I got into email marketing, and I think, I've been doing it since 2005, unofficially. Officially, I've also been into it for, I don't know, ever since, I think it was 2011 or 12 when I had, we built our first basic in the cloud email server. And I don't know about you, but even this year, every year, I feel like I'm diving deeper down the wormhole of what you can know about email.
It is one of the most interesting services that I've come across in all the years that I've been involved with email marketing. Because of the nature of the clients that I've taken on board and Mutual Advantage have taken on board, we've had the whole range of A to Z. But email marketing is one of those topics where it changes on an almost weekly basis. There's always something changing, and the big problem for all businesses is to get the right email to the right people at the right time. And the big problem as marketers we all face is the war against spam. And because the companies, Gmail, Outlook, AOL, AT&T.net, all companies are having this filtering to stop spam, legitimate messages are quite often getting caught up and not being delivered. And keeping on top of the changes with the algorithms over the years as big data and artificial intelligence is coming on board and helping these companies determine good emails from bad emails, there's always something exciting and something new to learn. And as the information comes out, as we go down the rabbit hole to try and help our clients, I'm always learning something new, Dan. I don't know about you. I never say that I know everything because it's a constantly changing environment. But there are the basics that every marketer and everyone who wants to get emails through to their clients needs to know and do.
No, you're 100% right. For me, in the beginning, I basically focused on list hygiene. I focused 100% on, the famous line from SendGrid, suppress the unengaged. I kind of lived and embodied that. And then I've discovered that email reputation scores were influenced by more than just list response, and that there were other metrics at play. And then I started discovering about spam traps, and it just kind of went deeper and deeper. So, Kevin, what I really wanted to do today is just tap into a certain piece or pieces of knowledge that you have that few other people have. And one of those things was, a while back you told me about this gentleman who you were managing email for. Or actually, sorry, I think you weren't managing email for him. And he did something kind of
dumb.
That's the word. That's the kind of word I'm looking for. Yeah, something really stupid you should not do in email marketing. And his reputation score dropped dramatically as a result of it.
Yeah.
And, we're definitely not going to get into names, and I have clients that have done the same sorts of things, and this is why they hire us. I thought it would be really juicy both for your clients and my clients to kind of dig into, what's possible when we, first of all, the kind of things that can cause that. But secondly, we don't need to get super detailed, but like how what kind of a result you were able to get. Because, one of the most biggest reasons people buy stuff is to kind of hear the transformation of where what you've been able to do, and what the software and the technology is capable of doing. So, and I guess the soap opera-esque approach I'll ask is, what exactly happened on the high level, and were you able to rescue his stupid mistake? That's a really good story, and I think you're absolutely right to bring that up so that we can help people that are listening not be as dumb as my client. And I think here it's fair to say that the client, who shall remain nameless, knows that I call him dumb for that. He's more than happy for me to bring the story up, and that will come out in the future. But basically what happened was, we set up a brand new server with an unused IP address, installed ARP Reach on it, and said to the client, okay, we know you've got your list. We need to go through a process. Leave it to us. We'll be fine. And what the client did was take his 140,000 list of clients, put an email into the autoresponder, imported in 140,000 email addresses, which he had collected from his different systems, and just let the email go out. So I think it's a good thing to let
all of the listeners know is that when you have an email server, we've touched on reputation. We are very, very lucky that we have a very small amount of unused IP addresses. And what happens is that when emails haven't been seen coming from an IP address, or there has never been a website on that address, it starts with a neutral reputation. So everybody that starts email marketing in that environment, and it's important to stress that you do need a virgin IP address and a new domain name, you start with a neutral reputation. And what that means is that the various monitoring services and the different email companies don't know whether you're a good person or a bad person. So they allow some emails through, and then they look at the interaction that you have with your readers, and then they make a determination as to whether they're going to allow more emails through. So one of the most influential companies that monitors reputation, they have a sliding scale from 0 to 100, and 100 is the best that you can get. Pretty much if your reputation drops below 71, that means that you are a spammer, and pretty much none of your emails are going to make it to the inbox. And if they do, because of this reputation, they're likely to end up in the spam box. The result was that within 48 hours doing this, my client managed to take a neutral reputation and drop that score to 4. I've never actually seen anyone be able to do that before, but from the perspective of the war on spam, it is good to actually see that in action. The result of that was that there were an inordinate number of complaints that came into our help desk. Those had to be mitigated. And the good thing was that because I had that relationship with the client, I was able to phone him up and say, Mr. Dumb, please stop what you're doing. We need to now recover this. It's going to cost you extra. And he was mortified. And over a 2.5 month period, we were actually able to recover that red line score of 4 up to 85. And we've been steadily improving it since then. And I'm pleased to say at the moment, his emails are getting through to his clients. We've had, to do the magic that we do, Dan, to make that happen. It's not the end of the world if you do something dumb. You can recover. But what we've found throughout that recovery process is that there are other companies at play apart from the big providers, and they're the real-time blacklists, the RBLs, and they have a memory that is longer than an elephant. And what we've found more recently, and this is recent information, Dan, is that if you've made that mistake, you really do get penalised heavily if you make a mistake again. So as a result of this, by following the instructions that we've given our client and working with our client to enforce that and help him, he has a much more engaged and responsive list than he's ever had before. And while, the old adage was, from SendGrid, that engagement factor, you can't turn your back on that. Engagement is still a very key metric for Gmail, Outlook, AOL, and all of the others. If you don't have that, you're fighting a losing battle. But there's certain things that you can do if you have a poor score and reputation to improve that reputation and improve the deliverability to the inbox. It doesn't happen overnight. There is a very, very significant war on spam that is going on. And, it's easy for me to say that because he made that mistake, he's having to be ultra scrupulous now. But the reality is that all marketers that are sending mail, whether it be advertising mail, transactional mail, general mail, they do need to have a really high regard for the individual, the person at the end of that email address. And the companies are looking for some kind of two-way interaction between the sender and the recipient. And more often than not these days, I'm seeing email that used to go straight to a Gmail inbox end up in a promotions tab. And then if there isn't that love between the sender and the recipient from the promotions tab, it, over a period of time, ends up in the spam bin, never to be seen again.
Yeah, definitely. So do you have maybe you want to throw out some quick tips of things that, especially your users that buy ARP Reach that, might help them stay out of the spam box or the, the promotions tab?
Yeah. Okay. So the simple tips, the underlying basics are that you need to have an MX record. Now that's slightly geeky, slightly technical. What that means is that in your DNS records, you actually have a record that says email can be received at this location. Now, a technicality of email is that without an MX record, you can still receive email. But one of the first things that a spam filtering service will look at is there a valid MX record? So get that sorted out. Before that, the most important aspect to have in place is your reverse DNS or RDNS. And what an RDNS is, it's a mechanism, a technical mechanism that your hosting provider should set up for you that says the IP address of this server is called something, something, something. And when somebody searches for something, 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 and the reverse lookup is done, it matches the IP address. And the reason for that is your server might be called server57.example.com, and email will be sent from that address. But on top of server57.example.com, we could have, emailexpertpodcast.com as the domain, and you are sending the email from Dan at, people are sending email back to you. The technical side of it is the mechanisms at play. Look at the name of the server. Is this legitimate? So you need to get your hosting company to sort out the RDNS. Again, cheap hosting companies don't tend to do that very well. One of the problems we see at ARP Reach is people buy ARP Reach, go to some of the cheap hosting providers, buy the cheapest hosting they can, and have that problem. And we can't help them, so make sure you've got good hosting. So then after the RDNS and your MX record, I guess the next most important technical things to make sure that you are having in play are a DKIM record, DKIM. Now, the DKIM record is, if you think of an SSL certificate, it's the same kind of thing at play. It's a key where there's a public and private key. It needs to be set up by the hosting company. And what happens is that when the email is sent, the recipient asks for the key, checks the key is valid for the domain, and allows the email through into their inbound email system. So DKIM is the next part. The next part in the sort of four key elements of the basics would be to have an SPF record, Sender Policy Framework. Now, this is something that anybody who has control of their own DNS records can add. And what you need to do there is you are saying with an SPF record that my domain, example.com, I allow emails to be sent from this IP address and this IP address. Any emails that appear to come from example.com that do not have these IP addresses are not mine. Do with them what you will. So they're the four key things that everybody sending marketing emails needs to make sure that you've got in play. One of the best places that I've found to go and check that for my own use and my clients and people that get in touch so that I can just see quickly is mxtoolbox.com. They've got a great little free service there, and you can search the basics. So once you've got the absolute fundamentals in play, the next thing to think about is how are you getting your contact records into ARP Reach? Now, while it is great for email marketers to want to import tens of thousands of email addresses, excuse me, it's probably not the best way. The best way to ensure good deliverability and to focus on building trust with your contacts is to actually force people through that double opt-in process, through a form or whatever. One of the big misconceptions that I see with lots of well-known up-and-coming marketers is just because they've sold a product to you or me, they feel that they have an absolute right to keep sending me marketing emails. And unfortunately, the definition of spam is anything that's unwanted. Now, if you, as a marketer, force somebody to click a link in an email that says, yes, I want you to send me email, while it won't stop a spam complaint, you've at least taken that step that you are removing fake email addresses and dead email addresses from your system. One of the biggest things that is going to affect your deliverability and your sender score is sending emails to email addresses that don't exist, and that can drop your ratings quicker than you like. So by having that opt-in process, while it's not stopping that initial email going out, you're not going to be sending emails to addresses that don't exist. And the benefit of that is because there's these algorithms in play, if you send more than a certain percentage of your emails to dead email addresses, your score drops. And as your score drops, it means less of the legitimate email addresses that you have and less of the real email addresses are actually seeing the mail you are sending appear in their inbox. So you've got this double-edged sword. I've heard the argument from marketers that, like, look, they've bought something, I've got the email address, just let me send the emails. But the reality is that, or even a form on a website to encourage people in the beginning of the funnel, you're offering a nice free report. I think at some point, all established marketers have, put fake email addresses in just to get that free report. But the reality is that, you don't want dead addresses on your system. You want live addresses from real people. And just doing that little bit of upfront work to ensure that you have live email addresses coming in at the front end is helping you on the back end. So I think the takeaway there is garbage in, garbage out, get the fundamentals right, and focus on building trust. And I think they're probably at this point, Dan, the best information that I can give. There's lots of other things, and I'm sure you want to expand on some of them, and I'm happy to do that. But they're the bits that people need to focus on in order to get good deliverability.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, I mean, yeah, and you and I could spend all day and never cover the same stuff twice in, each one of these little areas, too. I mean, those are all some really great takeaway points, and they're all great places that a person should look. The next thing I was kind of going to dive into here is some of our listeners are on other platforms and not getting the results that they want. Let's say somebody's going to dive into, purchasing an ARP Reach license and kind of getting started on their own self-managed email. How would you recommend that they get started on something like that? Where's the starting point?
Well, after you've bought it, that's the starting point. The next thing to do is make sure you install it on some suitable hosting. Now, hosting falls into so many different categories, it's hard to know where to start. Ideally, you would be in an environment where the size of your list would determine the capabilities of the server that you're going to be using. I don't recommend shared hosting environments for anyone that is doing serious email marketing. And I think it's wise here to just sort of cover briefly the reasons for that. If you are using a shared hosting company to send your emails out, while you might have taken the advice I've just given and have a scrupulously clean list, everyone's double opted in, you've built up the trust and engagement, they're hanging on your every word, you've told them that you're going to send an email every Thursday and they read it, all it takes is one person on that server. And please bear in mind that these cheap hosting companies, they're putting thousands of accounts on one server. If one person starts sending spam out, or one person has a weak WordPress plugin that allows a hacker to get in, the whole reputation of that server suffers and your emails don't go through as a result. So for people that are serious about email marketing, they're using a monthly service provider, they want to take control of their own marketing, have that safety, the security and protection. The next thing is a good quality server or a VPS where you have a dedicated IP address, a fixed IP address, and a team behind you that can handle the technical aspects of the DKIM and the RDNS. You can pretty much go where you want for a good quality server, but bear in mind what I said as well, the algorithms that exist look at the history of IP addresses and domain names. So if you go to a company with a high turnover of virtual servers and you get an IP address that might have been used to send spam, sort of from some African country a month ago, you are still going to suffer with that. You can recover from it, but, I'd say reach out to the hosting company and say, this is what I want to do. I want to send bulk emails of a certain type. Will you allow it? Can I do this? And take their feedback. Now then, getting ARP installed is relatively easy. Learning it, that's easy enough. The next thing to do is if you are moving from a monthly provider and you have an established relationship with your list, you need to let them know what you're going to be doing. Because if you've built that trust and engagement up with people, while they may have bookmarked your email address so that it comes into the inbox, that change of an IP address when you move your mail server from wherever it was to your new ARP Reach server, the companies like Gmail, they're going to see that difference. So while emails will still be coming from Dan at, the technical side of it will see, hang on, Dan's not sending from this IP address anymore, he's sending from that IP address. And that email temporarily could end up not in the inbox. So what you need to do is tell your clients that we are moving to a better service with more functionality, whatever it is that you want. We'll be sending an email on, keep an eye out for it, and be honest with people. You know, we're moving from this, keep an eye out from it. And I tend to advise my clients that come from the monthly providers to, you know, take the most engaged contacts and people and move them into ARP Reach first, because that initial relationship that the companies like Gmail see with the readers sets the tone for the future relationship that you have with Gmail and Outlook. So if you import in your most engaged current customers first, and you build that relationship with them, you're ticking all of the right boxes for Google. And the analogy that I put over to my clients is put yourself in Google's shoes. Don't see them as the enemy, even though I personally see that they are. If you own Google, what would you do? And then you can look at the whole situation and you can say to yourself, do you know, that's right. If I own Google and, you know, sort of this new company started sending thousands of emails to my customers and only 2 or 3 of them read the email or responded, that's not really a kind of company that I want more emails to come through. Whereas if this new company sends 1,000 emails into my Gmail service and 50% of them open the email and respond and click a link and have a conversation, there's already a relationship here, and the algorithms are going to see that, and you're going to give that new company sending emails more leeway than you would before. So the key takeaway here, Dan, is that you can transfer the trust and relationship from a monthly provider into ARP Reach. And the way to do that is to segment out the most engaged and current customers, build the relationship with them on ARP Reach, and then gradually import in the older customers that you might not have had interaction with for 3 months or more.
You know, I've always recommended that people bring in their opens and clickers first, and then obviously the rest of the list after that, just to establish the relationship, or I should say the reputation score as well.
Yeah, we break that down with our clients. We get them to look at all of the different lists. And from a list, it's probably worth clarifying there that it's not just this monthly provider and that monthly provider. That list might also include your accounts package, your CRM package, and things like that. And we break it down into timescales. The people that have bought a product from you or had a relationship or interaction with you within the last month are, inverted commas, more valuable than openers and clickers of 3 months ago. So, you know, things change. So we actually break things down into timescales as well as openers and clickers.
I know that you and I both use ARP Reach in different capacities. I set it up in the Amazon cloud with, what do they call, SMTP servers, and you've got your own custom servers. And certainly in the long stretch, I know you've had one package at one point there where somebody could buy the pay monthly for your servers, and I don't believe one of them had no limit on the number of emails that you could send.
Yep.
I don't know if you still offer that or not, but I wanted to talk for a few seconds about the 4 different people or 4 different types of reasons that people have come to me for ARP Reach installs, and maybe you could maybe chime in and tell me, you know, if you agree with those, or if you think those would be great reasons why people might want to have a custom email server.
That sounds great, Dan. Fire away.
So one of them was, I had this guy who was kicked off Aweber. He was my very first email marketing client. And basically, just 7 years with Aweber, and for the first time ever, got a high spam complaint rate with one of these emails. And so obviously, they just hit a mechanical trigger. A non-human decision was made to delete the account. And 3 or 4 days later, they did reinstate the account and give us the list back. But of course, by then the client was freaked out. Like, what are the chances of this happening again? Yeah. The second thing that I had happen was I've had clients come to me where they're getting super, super low deliverability. And on a third-party platform, they have absolutely no control over what IP and the reputation of those IPs that their messages come out on. A third type of client that I typically get is people engaging a brand new list that they've never mailed to before. So this one example, for example, I had this self-help client. They've got a self-help app on the iTunes and Google Play store. And basically people download this app, and in order to use it, they ask for their name and email address, and they put them in the database. And they'd never actually mailed this list before. It was over 2 years old. And shockingly, they got like 18 to 20% of those people to open. And, while the first initial emails had, literally thousands of unsubscribes, shockingly very low complaint rates. And there was very high conversion rates to actually upselling them to other programs that these guys sold. The third type of client that I get is people reviving a list that's been around for a while, but they really don't know how long or how valid those people are, and you certainly can't be uploading large volume contacts into some place like MailChimp or Aweber. Now, obviously, they do a little bit of cleaning initially and such like that, but obviously with ARP Reach, there's less chance of kind of getting shut down to experiment with an old customer list,
Yeah. I mean, let's focus on those and start with number one. If you are with Aweber or any of the monthly providers and you have that blip and they shut your account down, when I think back to the early part of this sort of podcast, one of the main reasons that I said was that you have that protection against that. Now, I do see more and more people approach us because they've had warnings or had their accounts shut down by all of the monthly providers. And it's actually quite shocking to think, I've got a screenshot somewhere. I'm not going to name the well-known marketing forum that I saw the issue with, but they sent an email out, and the tone of the email was very different to all of the other emails that have been sent out. And theirs was one of these services that I monitor. Being a geek and involved in this, I monitor lots of different services. And their sender score, and they use a third-party service to send their email, but they've got that dedicated IP address. It dropped from 91 to 73 because of the tone of the email, and the complaint markers that came up went from green to red. So what that tells me, and people should take from this, is that your readers expect a certain volume of send, a certain type of email, a certain tone of email. And if you deviate from that, it's spam as far as these people are concerned, and they complain. So when you get those complaints come through, if you are a monthly service provider, one of the things that Aweber and Infusionsoft and sort of all of the others do is they have a fixed selection of IP addresses, and they pull all of the different accounts into those IP addresses. And as a result of the actions of new people coming in, unless let's be blunt about this. If you're going to do email marketing professionally, it's best not to be cheap about it. and to have that high level of service with the dedicated IP address where you take full responsibility for it. So to move from that monthly service because you've made that mistake, that's an ideal reason for you to consider ARP Reach and that dedicated service. You get that protection. Can you just remind me of the second one on your list, please, Dan?
Super low delivery.
Yeah, super low delivery. Now, again, all monthly service providers, I'm not going to name names, but all of the monthly providers where you are paying a fee to them on a monthly basis, but you haven't stepped up and paid the additional fee for the dedicated IP address and the account manager. There's probably on a daily basis a percentage under 10 that varies on a day-to-day basis of emails that their customers are sending that do not make it past the spam filters. Here's a quick tip in the middle of all this for everyone. I don't rely on Spam Assassin to test whether my email will make it through the filters. What I do is I use ARP Reach. I set up a special segment or a tag, and we call it staff test. And in there, we set up email addresses to all of the major providers and our internal staff team and the client. And what we do is we set the broadcast message up or the autoresponder message, and we send the messages to the staff test segment. And in our office, we have 2 third-party spam filtration services. They're commercially available. Anyone can use them. And we run all of the emails through the third-party spam checking service. And what that does is it tells us what do these third-party providers think of the server setup that we've set up. Is the SPF in place, the DKIM, the reverse DNS. But what it also tells us is the domain name we're using. Does it have a prior history of sending spam? And the content of the email. Is the email content containing words and phrases that are most likely to be spam? And if we see that, that then gives us the ability, before we try to send out at volume, the ability to change the tone of the email so that it will make it through the commercially available filters. And it is quite easy to do once you know what you're doing. So people that are using monthly service providers, and I had a conversation just last week on behalf of a client with one of the monthly providers where they actually admit that, sort of, sorry, but you haven't got a dedicated IP address. We don't know you. We pull you. You just have to accept the fact that not all of your emails are going to get through. And because ARP Reach and this particular provider work hand in hand, we were actually able to say, right, rather than send the bounces into ARP Reach and the complaints into ARP Reach and have ARP Reach deal with them automatically, like you'd expect, please send everything to our support desk so that we can manually check how many emails aren't making it through the filters. And we were we expected that loss, as I said, somewhere under 10% not making it to the inbox. But, it even came as a shock to find out that the pooled IP address ranges of the monthly service providers that we were testing, so many companies just say, no, sorry, we know that this is a reputable monthly autoresponder service that you're paying for, but the reality is that IP address has been sending spam. We're not going to accept it. So by having ARP Reach, moving your list from a monthly provider to something in your total control, you have the ability to get more of your emails to the inbox from day one, with that neutral reputation, rather than being instantly tarnished by the poor actions of people that you don't know who are using monthly service providers because they've seen the headline, which is the money is in the list. And, I don't know about you, Dan, but well, the money might be in the list. It's a certain kind of list. It's one that you've got trust and engagement with.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it's, truly the money really is in the list. When you look at Facebook, and a fan page having an average of 7% viewership unless you boost it, and that's dropped actually. And then, Twitter being like shouting in outer space, you look at, what it takes to get traffic from any other source. Email is king, but it's definitely not king when you don't consider, like you said earlier in the podcast, the person at the other end of the email.
And that I think, Dan, sort of it's worth just reinforcing to your listeners that this isn't an email address list that you are trying to build. It's a list of people. People have needs, wants, and desires. And just because you've got an email address, if you forget for one moment that it's a person that's reading that email, and you don't appeal to what they need or want, it might as well be spam.
Absolutely. So anyway, so with those 4 use cases, that makes perfect sense. I guess just to wrap it up, because we've gone kind of a bit long here, I guess I just wanted to say, with this powerful software, being able to be your own email provider, make your own rules, did you want to mention any of the recent innovations so far that have happened with ARP Reach?
Well, we've got lots of innovations on the board for the upcoming next release that, sort of just let people know that that's coming. But the recent innovations since I took over at the helm is we've introduced an API into ARP Reach. Previously, that wasn't there. And the API allows our users to interact more efficiently and effectively with pretty much any of the third-party services that might be out there. Now, what I would say is if, sort of you're using lead pages, for example, and you don't want to use the API, the form service that ARP Reach has will integrate with any of the third-party services, but that API is really, really helpful. And, sort of, I know that there are some companies out there, Dan, that are developing some SaaS solutions to enhance the reporting for some of their clients and things like that. I'm really excited about that development. Can't wait to see that come commercially available. In general, ARP Reach is a self-owned, self-hosted solution that in the long term, it saves you money. All the monthly providers, they charge you by the volume of contacts that you have on your service with them. ARP Reach, you can import hundreds of thousands or collect a list over time of, 500,000. We've even got one user with million records in there. And it doesn't cost you any more. It's that same one-time flat fee, the annual cost for the updates, none of this monthly cost that increases as your list increases. So all things considered with that, stability, the safety, the security, the improvements that we've got going on and no increase in fees as your list goes on, I just believe that ARP Reach is the smart solution for smart marketers, Dan.
No, I fully agree. I just, obviously, my company, I was going to throw in that our team is working, obviously, on creating a dashboard for ARP Reach. So far, we've come as far as actually building most of the functionality that we needed under the back end and creating the actual functions. And we've actually just sent to the second designer, all the details, hoping to get a gorgeous design from a top-notch designer, so that usability is going to be key. But yeah, no, I think, with the future of ARP Reach, if I could be so bold to sort of, forecast a little bit that obviously as, the underground or underneath of it, the framework, I guess you could say, continues to improve. I know you're kind of looking long-term at building all kinds of enhancements and add-ons and and upgrades.
Yeah, a little bit of intelligence in there as time goes on. We've improved the underlying core framework. We're working with your team on enhancing the PHP 7 compatibility, and your team's sort of SaaS solution is one of those that I'm really excited about. It's going to make the reporting on a per email, per broadcast, per autoresponder basis just sort of jump out and make it the go-to solution for so many people, Dan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I've got clients that have literally thrown money at me saying, if you're going to add conversion tracking and add these extra features, we're all over that. So that's the incredible vision. But I mean, even as it is, as a current platform, I was literally just talking to somebody this morning, a friend of mine who, I literally was just talking shop with him about his membership site that's exploding. Like, he's got 700 new members this month, and he was telling me that he found this. He's got everything integrated with ARP Reach, and I said, "You use ARP? Really?" I said, "Of all the softwares you could mention, you use ARP?" And he's like, "Yeah." This is my buddy David, and so. Long story short, anyway, the future is incredibly beautiful for ARP Reach. I mean, not just with, the most recent upgraded the mailer and upgraded all kinds of new functions for the API. I'm sure there's going to be tons more new functions coming for the API. I should also, mention. I mean, I'm not going to get into details, but certainly if, that there is going to be some incredible. New functions being added and new toys being added as you go along. So, it's definitely not a dead platform by any stretch.
The time is definitely now. If you're sort of wanting to, if we've encourage you to think again about monthly solutions versus the benefits that taking control of your own email marketing is. Now's the time to get into ARP Reach. We're going to always look after the people that are with us. And I know Dan, and thanks for not spilling the beans totally, but when that new functionality does come in, the price is going to rocket because it will be a one-of-a-kind solution. But yeah, as you say, right here, right now, ARP Reach has huge capability and functionality. It can be made to integrate with everything and anything. It integrates with most things now already, but if you have a custom solution of your own or an accounts package, a half-decent coder, and I know you've got those on staff, Dan.
I sure do.
They'd be able to build you an integration for your custom solution to work with ARP so that you can get that right message out to the right people at the right time and time again.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about ARP Reach is, even if you are that newbie who's, got a server that you want to just kind of put a PHP email software onto and just start experimenting and, learning what it's like to be your own email provider. I mean, you can even play with things like Zapier if you don't know how to do API code, and start bringing things in using that plug and play tool. So, I mean, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, we've got the instructions on the blog for how to integrate anything with Zapier already, and it is a great place to start. People that are thinking of even getting into email marketing, if you think back, all those years ago, I decided that I didn't want to be held accountable to a monthly service provider and pay ever increasing costs. Pretty much everybody who uses ARP Reach and keeps using it, it pays for itself within the first year because, as your list increases, there's no additional costs. So it is, the smart choice for people that want to have control of their own email marketing. We've got, what I don't mind saying is we'll be launching a new service for all of the existing members in a very private area. We've got new training coming out. We've got other marketers coming in to help get people involved with email marketing and understand that. And Dan, you and I have talked about that, and I know you'll be part of that. So, yeah, all things considered, great choice to make.
I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say. You know what? That thing that you're building, that community of sorts, is going to actually, and you have to admit this, it's actually kind of going to create an unfair advantage for marketers that join that. So I really do think that anybody who's going to start playing with ARP really needs to reach out to you and find out what it's going to take to get a pro level membership with that.
Oh yeah. No, the people that I've spoken to that are involved in that, we've got so much commitment and so much drive for that. It's going to kind of revolutionize email marketing by bringing so many people with so much skill and capability into one area. And if people do want to reach out to me, they can do that through arpreach.com. There's a contact us form there. Fill that in. There's a subject line, just put Dan's podcast at the top, and Frank will forward that to me.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Kevin, for coming on the show. You've been an awesome guest, and thank you for spilling the beans as much as you have on so many of the great things that you shared with us.
Thanks, Dan, for having me. It's been great.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Email Expert Podcast. To get your free guides, templates, and more, join us at www.emailexpertpodcast.com.